1998 World 10-Pin Team Cup, and this the third time the governing body, the FIQ, have staged the event. But after Kuala Lumpur in 1994 and Calgary, Canada in 1996, for the first time ever, the event comes to Europe, and we are delighted to be showing you this on Eurosport. It's the official World Team Championships on your European bowling channel. And we have the defending champions in the men's division, Finland. That's who we'll be seeing today as they beat Denmark for third place in the qualification program. And first up, they will play the United States five-man team comfortably into the stepladder phase in second place. So the winners of this matchup go forward to meet the mighty Swedes, who finished in first position after qualifying for the gold medal. Now, we're playing the Baker system. If you saw our latest program last week, you'll understand what that's all about. Five-man team bowling means that everybody bowls more or less together, alternate shots from each side, so that we get through a game in about 15 minutes, which is regulation for regularized television bowling. We're going to dive into the action in frame 4 with the United States. On the approach is Tony Manor Jr. from Omaha, Nebraska. And he hits all 10. Well done, Tony. Now, that means with 5 players in a team and 10 frames, it doesn't take much to work out that every guy gets 2 frames to bowl. So, A, you don't want to let your teammates down, and B, you've only got 2 cracks at it. And Tony doing his part there with a big strike in frame 4. The USA started with a spare, and now they have 3 running, a triple through frames 2, 3, and 4. So the United States now take a breather, straight on with the action. It really is fast and furious. This is frame 4 for the Finns, and that's Antti-Pekka Lax. 3 of their team were gold medal winners in Calgary 2 years ago, and with the VIPs gazing intently at the action, can the Finns defend their gold medal won in Canada? Now, they began with an open frame in the first when they missed a spare. So they're coming from behind. And in frame 4, they have another spare, but they had strikes in 2 and 3. However, the open at the moment is the damage done, which sees the United States into a 20-pin lead as we come into frame 5. Poor shot too far right, coming from the anchor man, Chad Murphy. That means he bowls the 5th, the last one to step up, and he'll also bowl the crucial 10th frame. Now, the teams can either put their best bowler into the anchor position, that's what normally happens, but it can also be the player with the coolest nerve, because everything riding on his shoulders at the end of the game in frame 10. This is a 2-time world champion for the mighty Finns. His name, Mikael Koivuniemi. He really is a superb bowler, so good in fact that he now applies his trade with residency in the United States of America. So for the spare in frame 5, just going back to Chad Murphy, doing the business too, getting a nice reaction in the back ends to take down what was a difficult spare. Well done to Chad. And that keeps the United States still in the box seat. Now Koivuniemi with his spare. And the Finns, remember, with the open in frame 1, it's the only blemish on either team's scorecard so far. And the bowlers in positions 3, 4, and 5, all members of the triumphant team last time out for Finland. So we go back now to the guy who started it all off for the United States, Carl Fitek, coming in at position 1. Means he bowls the 1st and this, the 6th, and that's a perfect start to the second phase of this stepladder final. Remember these, the seeds 3 and 2, that's how they finished in the rankings. Finland just squeezing the Danes down into 4th place. The United States were well up there comfortably into 2nd position, just behind the Swedes. And they're still ahead against the reigning champions. So that's Petra Manonen, and he was the man who opened in frame 1, so he had something to atone for with that shot in the 6, and he's responded magnificently with a strike. So both teams are working on strikes into frame 7, But the graphic tells you the United States lead by 19. John Gaines, the big man, almost 2 meters in height. That's not always an advantage in 10-pin bowling. Needs good balance, strong head position, and he goes out wide to the left of the approach, as you can see, to get the delivery arm around that big lanky body of his. John Gaines taking the congratulations, sits down, and with another strike from him, he struck in the second as well. That's the end of his participation in this game. Kimmo Lehtonen now, next up for the Finns, another man from Helsinki. Didn't make the winning team of 2 years ago, so wants desperately to get amongst the medals this time round. Well, a bronze assured for the defending champions, but so high are the standards set in Finland, that would be seen as tantamount to failure if they fail to get through and play their arch rivals, the Swedes, and what a final showdown that would be. Now, these guys are going to play 2 10-frame games, and the aggregate score, that is the points total from this and the next game added together, is what matters. And what matters right now is the United States cannot miss. Down goes yet another strike for them in frame 8. And that's the last man from their side. We haven't seen him so far. And Brad Angelo from Buffalo, New York, shows you just how to do it. Lassi Lintilä, we've seen him on Eurosport over the past 12 months, featured in one of our Stepladder finals on the Golden Bowling Ball Tour last season in Dresden, where he came third. Very exciting bowler, 30 years of age, ultra aggressive opponent, never smiles on the bowling lanes, and takes a while to come down from the high of bowling after a match as well. A man of few words, but a devastating style. Finns still trailing, however. Lintilä with the 7-pin conversion in frame 8. And the USA pushing their advantage now up towards the 30-pin mark. That's a very handy cushion indeed to take into the second leg. Come on is the cry, 8 is the count. That was Tony Manor Jr. Managed a 4th place in the Amateur National Championships in his home country this season, and he's the 1996 Omaha Bowler of the Year as well. Antti-Pekka Lax, well, he's gathered in a host of trophies around Europe. 1996 Les Lion Cup champion in Norrköping, Sweden. That's one of the toughest competitions to win in individual team bowling. But this 5-man team event is a different format altogether. Many bowlers don't like it. The Baker system here, remember, you just get 2 cracks at it in any game. So after another turkey in frames 6, 7, 8, the American boys all pulling together and everybody doing their bit. They've had 3 in a row, frames 2 to 4, and then again 6, 8. Tony gets their spare, as does Pekka Lax for his side. But the Finns are going to have to claw back quite a deficit if they're not to go out of the tournament at this level. The Americans, all of whom have their role models on the PBA Pro Tour in the US, and they tend to be big crankers. That means big hookers. The lanes over in the United States favor that. The double world champion in the clutch position for the Finns, but they're not used to being in this position, down by 30 pins. Chad Murphy just waiting for everybody behind him to settle down. That can be difficult. Remember, there are 9 men watching, as well as a packed house here in Amsterdam. First of 2 bonus balls in the 10th frame, because he struck, remember, with that first shot. Koivuniemi, born in Tampere, now resides in Michigan. 1991 world champion in Singapore, did it again in Reno, Nevada in '95. Leading the Finnish challenge here once again as they go for back-to-back titles. Right-hander, as you see, high no shot, 3-6-10 leave on the right-hand side of the pack. Just one shot to finish for Chad Murphy in the USA. 2-3-5 if he takes both of these. Just the one. Okay, no damage done because no bonus balls to follow, of course, at the end of the 10th frame. So the five-man team from the US gather round, and I should think they'll be pretty happy with a total of 233, and that's the score that they carry into the second leg. Oh, final count then from the Finns, 2-0-3, and a 30-pin advantage for the United States for game 2 coming up after this. Welcome back laneside here in Amsterdam. You're watching the 1998 World 10-Pin Team Cup, and this a second leg game between the United States and Finland to see who will meet top seed Sweden for this year's gold medal. Remember, the Finnish side trailed by 30 pins from the first game. Laneside were in at the top of the first frame this time. Petra Manonen leads off, and the Finns have it all to do. 10 more frames to roll. A much better start than Petri got his side off to in game 1. Neither coach bringing in a substitute, sticking with what they have. No problems with that thinking for the American coach. Carl Fitek responds in the first with a strike for the US. Palmer Falgren, a former pro bowler in charge of the US team here over the 5-day tournament, and overseeing Finnish affairs, as always, Tapio Foerinen, a former world champion himself. There you see him in the background with the accreditation tag. A rather studied approach this time from the left-hander. Kimmo Lehtonen. He and Manonen are the two rookies in this championship-winning side. Manonen and Lehtonen, who've come through the youth ranks. Very structured indeed is Finnish bowling. And now Big John Gaines, the gentle giant, rolls that ball. No power, no unbridled aggression. Just focused, smooth and precise. And the United States doing nothing wrong so far in this second of 2 games. Aggregate pin count to decide. More anxious moments for the Finns, because what they needed to do was jump out on the Americans and erode that 30-pin lead. But there's nothing you can do about that when your opponents strike every time they step to the foul line. This is the man I dubbed the killer in 1990 when he first started to make a mark on the English scene, coming over and winning our tournaments. The killer, Lassi Lintilä from the Remi Club. Now a family man with a young family, likes to relax with fishing and a little jazz, trying to get those pins hopping around to his own music. Lassi in frame 3. So, while Lassi contemplates how he's going to knock the skin off that 2-pin, here comes bowler number 3 in the US formation, Brad Angelo. "29 years old. Only just made the USA team in the last 12 months. Has a couple of PBA Western Region titles to his name. And has also picked up a tournament win in the last year down in Cape Town, South Africa. Took the Africa Cup with bowling just like that, right out of the top draw. What a finishing position from Angelo. Linteler going for that 2-pin, right down the middle, no problems for the 30-year-old Finnish stalwart. So Lasse will reappear in frame 8 for his side. Now we move forward to Antti-Pekka Lax. Remember, one of the three who sampled delight and the taste of gold in Calgary. Plays for the Giants Club in Finland, where over the course of a long winter, 10-pin bowling is virtually the national sport. Now, the Americans, remember, although they are the only nation, certainly in the Western world, who have a fully fledged professional league of some status, these guys are all technically amateurs. Some would dearly love to go out full-time on the Pro Tour. One or two Europeans have tried it. It's a tremendously grueling schedule, long, lonely days, driving from event to event, and if you then go out quickly the following weekend, you can add to that a couple of lonely nights in the hotel before you hit the road again, and it can make or break the toughest of sportsmen. But this is the pinnacle in whatever your chosen sport, representing your country. Koivuniemen has been doing that for the past decade, 3 national titles in his homeland. One of the true greats of the past decade in European bowling. Sits down after putting yet another strike in the scoreboard. Chad Murphy showing just why he is bowling the anchor role for Team USA today. Well, they've had 4 strikes, 3 strikes from the first 5 frames for the Finns, but all 5 in a row for the United States. And that 30-pin lead that they took into the second game is getting bigger and bigger with every shot. Yet to miss, and back we go again to number 1 bowler Carl Fitek. And just about the first loose shot the Yanks have bowled for a game and a half. So Carl from Minnesota has a very tough spare indeed in the 6th, but the Americans are within sight of the finishing line and already might just have done enough to have sewn this match up. Well, this is a near impossible shot for Carl. So coming as it does in frame 6, just a glimmer of daylight for Finland. But remember, 30 down, well, it's doubled midway through this second game. And that is a huge, huge mountain to climb. All they can do is keep striking. And he did that, especially as Petri, lead-off man, had only spared. So they come up behind that spare in frame 6 with what looks like another one. Kimo has to pause as John Gaines fills his second, and for him the 7th frame in the team sequence. We're playing AMF synthetic lanes here at the Klaus Party World Centre, just outside Amsterdam, where the Dutch Bowling Federation have provided much of the resources to make this event happen, and congratulations to them for putting their faith in this tournament and bringing it to Europe for the first time. It is the first time too we featured the Baker system on any European TV network, and it really is a helter-skelter ride, I know. Hang on to your armchair, because the pace is fast and furious. But at this moment, And Lassie will take all the time he can. There's normally a 30-second rule from match referees for the set-up shot, just so that gamesmanship doesn't come into play. Lassie is one of the slower bowlers out on the circuit. But I think whatever the Finns can pull out of the bag here is going to be academic, because the gulf between them and the USA team is simply too great. That won't, however, stop Lassie putting another strike down in the books. And just look at that, the eyes of an assassin. There's the reaction point right there where we freeze it, and back comes the ball into the 1-3 pocket. It's a classic shot, and the optimum angle of delivery to hit those strikes regularly, 6.8 degrees. Lassie, you'll find, hits it more times than just about any bowler out in Europe at the moment. Americans, with the job done, have relaxed slightly, taken their foot off the accelerator, and they've come up with a high hit. And suddenly they're hitting sevens with just about every shot. But it shouldn't matter at this stage unless they completely crumble, but surely this game's in the bag. Remember, the first 5 American bowlers all with perfect strikes, and now we've had 3 poor shots from them. So it's Pekka-Lax. And we're into the 9th frame for the Finns. There's simply no more distance for them to claw back this disadvantage. 30 pins carried in from game 1 for the Yanks was always a very useful margin indeed. Always left the big 2. Well, that's interesting. That's a nightmare shot for any bowler. Tony Mannett Jr., the unlucky man to come up with the 7-10 leave. So a spare for the Finns in frame 9. But they just haven't struck enough, and they haven't put them together either. They had a double in frames 4 and 5, but otherwise there have been too many spares on the score sheet in this second of the 2 games. The Americans are just going to check on the scoring position. Surely that should tell them they're home and dry. If Koivuniemi can produce 3 strikes in the 10th frame, the Finns will have a 2-1-6 game. The United States are currently on 189, but he's not going to do that. I was going to say, had Koivuniemi come up with a turkey, which he's quite capable of doing, and the USA for some reason had failed to hit pins from any of their shots in the 10th, which really is not going to happen, even in the Finns' greatest hopes, then they could have sneaked in. But once Koivuniemi failed to strike, it was the Americans' game. So now they can relax. And it's just a question of putting the final points tally on the board, but the United States have secured themselves a place in the final. They at worst here will take the silver medal. And for the reigning champions, the 2-year reign at the top has come to an end. They've run into a wall today known as Team USA, and we are going to have a new championship nation in the 1998 World 10-Pin Team Cup. So a tired response from Koivuniemi, because at the end of 5 days, that, I'm afraid, is the end of the road for Finland. And the United States have beaten the defending champions, and comprehensively so. Just waiting for the final shot from anchorman Chad Murphy. And the US have posted 209 in the second leg, the Finns with 201. And the aggregate is a 38-pin winning margin for the United States of America. The 30-pin win from game 1 proving crucial. The Finns gave it a go in the second, but they are out of the tournament and will finish in the bronze medal position. But who's going to win? Find out after this. Welcome back. You're watching the 98 World 10-Pin Team Cup from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And you're looking at the #1 seed, Sweden, who now go into the grand final against the United States of America. Just look at this record from the Swedes in this competition. 1994 Kuala Lumpur, gold medal. 1996 Calgary, silver medal. And here they are today, going once again for gold. And throwing their reserve shirts into the crowd. Well, that's one way to get the neutrals on your side for a start. And that is a very clever piece of psychology indeed, because it's warmed up the crowd, broken the ice. It's gone down tremendously with the bowling enthusiasts here from the Netherlands. And it took both our cameras and the American team a little by surprise. Who said the Scandinavians lacked a sense of humour? Well, that's a great moment. And now we settle down and get into the action. And once again, we're going to join the first of 2 games on the Baker system in frame 4. It's Patrick Bucker. How about that? The Swedes have 3 in a row. They spared the first, a nervous start for them from their lead-off man, Per Svensson. Oh, look at that. You can do that when you're young and the spine is still supple. So the Americans in frame 4 with Tony Manor. Once again, they haven't bothered to change a winning formula. Why indeed should they? Made a very nervous start indeed. They struck in the first, they had a big open in the second, and then a spare frame 3, and that strike of Tony's in the 4th, but they're behind as we come to the 5th with the anchorman Tommy Leandersson, a legend in his own lifetime, the big and popular Swedish bowler who has won everything in his career and was one of the successful 5-man winning team gold medalists of 1994. 2 in the side, and Leandersson in the anchor position is one of those. Oh, that's a bad shot. Loose one from Chad Murphy in the 5th. Now, the Americans already have 1 open, and perhaps you can get away with 1 over 10 frames, but not 2. And I can't see any way that this is going to turn into a spare for Chad. This is all but impossible. Well, he's got the 4-7 to the left. And of course he's got the 6-10 to right, but he's also got the 9 as well. He's gone for the right-hand side, trying to get a big deflection across for those 4-7 pins, and he just chops them. So the count is just 6 pins in frame 5 when you're looking for spares that add 10 or strikes that add 20. And that's a real hammer blow for the Americans. Twice they've opened. Per Svensson. He wants a good shot here to really hurt the opposition, but that wasn't it. So after 4 strikes in a row, Per, the lead-off man, who left exactly that formation in frame 1. So whatever the fault was, he hasn't corrected it. And of course, when you only get 2 shots over 10 frames, it's almost impossible in such a short space of time at the team game to try and work out what you're doing wrong. So this is a tough one too for Per, but well done to him. And he's delighted. Okay, Per, calm down. Well, just keeping his opponent waiting there. Not sure that was appreciated by the Americans, but both nations have spares into frame 6. those red figures you see on your scorecard, showing the Americans really making life very tough for themselves with 2 open frames in the first 5. Patrick Johansson, the big man, the second of the successful 94 side, who brought gold back from Kuala Lumpur. John Gaines, even taller, pulls out of Maryland. He's the 97 US amateur champion. Go on. Unlucky. That's a tough break. The Swedes, incidentally, are now 56 pins in the clear. And the head pin that was rolling across the pin deck, but just missing the 10 by a matter of a millimetre. So no strike for Gaines. But he must spare this. They can't allow themselves another open. Never mind if this game is technically lost, of course, with the second to follow. They haven't lost anything at this stage, but they do not want to be adrift by 50 pins going into game 2. That's a chasm that will be almost impossible to bridge. Old friend of ours out on the tour, Goran Karlsson. We saw him make the stepladder in last season's Golden Bowling Ball Tour. Not this time, Goran, no. The 7-pin has a mind of its own. Goran, another guy, a welder by profession, who gets a lot of fun out of bowling. He's a great guy away from the lanes, likes a bit of golf, and he's always good for a chat with the press and the media and fans. Has plenty of time for everybody associated with bowling. He's got a 7-pin to consider. Angelo has got to find a way of pulling his side at least to touching distance of the Swedes if they're to stand any hope in the second of the 2 games. Okay, this is Goran, nearest us. Right-hander is a 30-year-old, well, semi-pro really. He's tried his hand out on the US tour, gave it a year. Bowls out of Helsingborg. Goran with his spare safely in the bag. Tony Manor Jr. That's better. Much better. Well done, Tony. He's been a stalwart over the 2 games in this stepladder final, and he's come up with strikes each time he's hit the approaches for his team. So after Goran, we have for Sweden Patrick Backe. He wasn't there in '94, but he did go to Calgary, where the Swedes were runners-up to their old enemies, the Finns. Patrick holds the Swedish 4-game aggregate record. Now, a perfect game worth 300 for 10 frames of strikes, 12 strikes in total with the 2 bonus balls at the end of the 10th. So his 1,062 4-game series is a Swedish national record. And he's not going to let anybody down today in this situation. The Swedes are coached by Magnus Jonsson, who also handles our bowling commentaries for us here sometimes on Eurosport for Scandinavia. And you can just see him in the background in the center of the knot of navy blue bowling shirts worn by Team Sweden. Some very serious looks on the faces of their opponents at this stage of the game. Here we go. Anchorman Tommy Lee Anderson in frame 10. He's a little high on the head pin. So the Swedes, strong run through frames 2 to 5, 4 in a row. Big strikes that mattered as the Americans faltered with a couple of open frames. And that's what they need more of to stay in contention for the gold medal. While the Swedes, this will be their third successive spare if Tommy converts the 6 pin, and he does. From Karlskoga in the south of Sweden, a very pleasant town on the coast. Works in the bowling business, runs his own centre. Plenty of time, of course, for the practice that produces champions. So that's his bonus ball at the end of the 10th frame behind his spare. 223, it's not a bad aggregate score at all. No open frames, a nice mixture too of strikes and spares from the Swedes. But disappointment very much from the Americans here, unable to sustain the momentum that saw them eliminate Finland. And he had an unhappy 10th frame last time he was on camera, and Chad Murphy once again shakes his head and wonders what's changed. Is it him, the action, the wrist position, or is it the lanes? So, all 10 on the bonus ball, but 186, and the Americans are taking a 37-pin deficit into game 2 after this. Welcome back on Roll Over Beethoven. Both nations about to do those pins some more damage as we get back to hitting the wood. And in game 2, we're going to join it in the 4th frame, and the Americans are staring down the barrel because they're coming in behind an open frame in the 3rd. Just what they didn't need, and a 37-pin gap, remember, carried over from game 1, a 37-pin deficit to overcome. That's almost as good as handing your opponents 2 bonus strikes. So the Americans with Tony Manor in the 4th frame, a spare, a strike, and then an open in the 3rd from Brad Angelo. And Tony has some thinking to do as Patrick Buck just drives another nail in the coffin. And the Swedes have started spare, strike, spare, strike. So we're through the 4th frame, and Sweden already 37 pins to the good before we got underway in this 2nd leg. And really stretching their legs now. I really don't think the Americans ever recovered from the moment, and I'm sure this was premeditated. The Swedes stepped onto the approaches and threw those spare shirts into the crowd. It was a light-hearted moment, maybe. Caught the Americans a little bit underprepared and rather sucked them out. What a clever ploy. Lee Anderson, who hasn't missed in this stepladder format so far. He's a little high this time. No, he's not going to get anything. Out of the pin roll, and the 3-6 remains standing. Oh no, Chad Murphy. He's the anchor, and he should be the bowler best equipped in that situation to handle the pressure. And he's opened again, would you believe it? America really going from bad to worse now for them. Tommy keeps his nerve. The Swedes won't be celebrating just yet. But a resigned look on the face of the American coach, Palmer Falgren, with his head in his hands. Here comes Carl Fitek. Started off the first with a spare, and he's going to have to do it again in the 6th. Look at these American faces. They are shell-shocked. Now the all singing, all dancing Per Svensson. Helping it on its way, talking to the ball. The 10-pin wasn't listening. Gets a low 5 from Goran. Not quite a high 5. So well done, Carl. He's spared for his team. but you can see the long faces around him. Spencer, you can hear him in the background, really firing up the Swedes. They're a great unit. They're not 5 individuals all playing their own game. They really are, in every sense of the word, a team. Deadpan John Gaines. In position 2, coming in to frame 7 for the United States. Well, another 25 pins has been added to that 37 the Swedes already had as a cushion. And that's now turning into a mountain. And Gaines is now catching the fever. It's spreading like a brush fire through this Team USA. They're shattered. The Swedes are grinding them into the bowling lanes here. This is almost painful to watch, unless, of course, you come from the northern frozen land of Sweden. They'll all be indoors for the next 4 months. And on the back of this performance, I'm sure there'll be a lot more up-and-coming youngsters who'll be pushing for recognition and continuing to add strength in depth to Swedish national bowling. Goran Karlsson, it seems as if he's been around for ages. MVP, well, he has just been voted the most valuable player of the 5-day tournament, and what a testament to his guts, courage and dedication, and an acknowledgement once again of Sweden's supremacy at this sport. So we're moving towards the final uncomfortable moments of what has been a public, almost execution, humiliation, one might say, of Team USA. Tony Manor in the 9th. No way back now for the Americans. They have been well and truly thrashed here in Amsterdam. First loose shot we've seen from the Swedes, and it could be their first open frame of this final coming up in the 9th. As Tony completes a routine spare, anything but here for Patrick Bakker. Thank goodness for him and his nation that it does not matter at all. But he showboats a little there with a big flipper. Man, they're still laughing. There's Chad Murphy, gets it over with as quickly as possible. And Chad, who's had a couple of really rocky frames for us here on this telecast, now with the pressure off, relaxes and just lets it roll off the palm of the hand and finds the strike. But it's come way, way too late to salvage anything for the Stars and Stripes. Well, the American men can look back on 2 perfect games. The first ever in a World Team 10-pin Cup finals came against Canada earlier in the week. And just to prove that was no fluke, they followed it up with another 300 against Malaysia. That is some bowling. 2 perfect games. That means not just one bowler's hot, but all 5 are firing together on all cylinders. But the Swedes, never mind firing on all cylinders, this has been a turbocharged performance from a mighty-looking Swedish side. Watch out, world, in 2 years' time. They are kings of the castle here in Holland. In 1998, it's handshakes all round from a rather grim-looking Team USA. Nobody's bothering to watch Tommy as he rolls it out. And they're all piling in now. Pear leading the charge. Tommy goes to ground. And the Swedes prepare to celebrate. They've gained the gold once again. Sweden, the champions of the world at 5-man team in '94, silver 2 years ago, and they are back once again with a vengeance. A runaway victory, 194-162 in the second leg, but a massive 69-pin winning advantage And they are roaring at the moon with delight. Well, a few fine glasses of Dutch ale will be sunk this evening, I'm sure. So there you have it. Unrivaled supremacy and a massive win for the Swedes as they sweep all before them at the third World 10-Pin Team Cup. The positions from 6 down to 10, well done to the little Dominican Republic for coming into the top 10 there, ahead of some very big nations, and Venezuela also. Congratulations on their 9th place finish. A word, I'm afraid, on the English. Well, we didn't get through the European qualifying zone, and we didn't make it to Holland for the final 15. So the 5 Vikings who've come a-pillaging here to the Netherlands are Per Svensson, Patrick Johansson, Goran Carlsen, Patrick Bakker and Tommy Leanderson. They are the gold medal winners of the 1998 World 10-Pin Team Cup, and they've swept aside the formidable Team USA side, with the defending champions Finland taking bronze. We'd like to congratulate the Dutch Bowling Federation for making this telecast possible on Eurosport, and my thanks to Han Heiseldorn for his production. Hope you've enjoyed the bowling. Enjoy your game, and see you again soon.